Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for the rest to jump in. Still some people left in the waiting room. Hello, Alina. Thank you for turning on your video. We really appreciate it. It's always nice when audience turns on the video.
Of course, I know that sometimes it's really awkward talking to to yourself.
So nice, thank you. Anyone who could turn on the video, really appreciate it. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Kasper. Thank you, Gabriela, and so on and so on. Thank you.
There's actual people here. Cool.
Yes, I told you. Don't be so humble. They all came here for you.
Wait, what do you mean, actual people? Like, we're not doing it just the four of us, no?
I was scared the audience would be AI.
AI, yeah, Gabriela, AI is everywhere. Exactly. The AI is our audience for us. Oh, wow, still joining. Chris, can you help with the admitting part? And I will start maybe my part of presentation.
Yes, I am doing my best.
Yeah.
Oh, I see some familiar faces here as well. Hello, Melissa. One of our Karlstad students.
And I'm pretty sure our Futuregames Warsaw students will be here to verify what I'm talking about our school, what I'm saying. So they will hold me accountable. Oh, wow, still people joining. So let's give them a few more minutes, maybe 2, before I start. Okay, let me start. Guys, my name is Piotr Matecki. I'm head of Futuregames Warsaw, the newest offspring in Futuregames family. We have 5 schools in Sweden, and this will be soon shown in my presentation. And this webinar is a part of our cooperation with our strategic partner, CD PROJEKT. And hence, due to this thanks to this strategic partnership, we have today with us experts from CD PROJEKT, our noble guests, Remi Nowakowski and Szymon Urban. Yeah, guys know that. And this presentation will be led by Chris Rakkestad, our head teacher in game art from Karlstad. And just for a few minutes at the beginning, I will move off the way, but let me just make a short presentation about who we are and why we organize this webinar. Basically, this is the way for Futuregames Warsaw to reach out to our future students and candidates and to show what we do, how we do, and whom we work with. I suspect there is few of you who already seen this presentation here in this webinar, so I just wanted to share with the rest, maybe quickly, an overview what we are doing. We already run few of these, I think it's 10 webinars joined with CD PROJEKT. They are all recordings from these webinars you can find on our social media, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I will share the links throughout this presentation, so not to use more time now. And you are now joining the webinar in style in game art, which will be hosted, as I said, by Chris. Just a few words, really a short introduction about the school. So I mix the slides. For those who've seen this presentation, I start with partnerships. Hazelight is the studio which was created by alumni of Futuregames in Sweden. Per Stenbeck has only the positive words to say, and being himself also an alumni of Futuregames Warsaw. Sorry, Futuregames, not Warsaw, of course. Josef Fares, CEO and game director at Hazelight, is really happy with the partnership with us. Why am I showing this? Just to show you that we are not a school, we are a part of Swedish game dev ecosystem, and our role for the past 20 years in Sweden was to co-create the game dev industry in Sweden and deliver talented people, well-trained, production-ready people to the industry. And so these are opinions which we got as a result from many companies. We work basically with the whole industry in Sweden. Our schools are in Karlstad, Stockholm, Skellefteå, and Boden right now in Sweden. Malmo is also was opened last September, the same time as Futuregames in Warsaw. We are reaching out to Norway and to Nordreisa. Warsaw is the youngest location, and the school is open in Warsaw in strategic partnership with CD PROJEKT RED. Educations which we offer here are game artist, game designer, and game programmer. These are 2.5 years full-time courses run on-site in Warsaw, in our facility, in our school. This year we will also launch game producer course, which is 1.5 years. This is for more advanced in project management people with some background in the either film production industry or as quality assurance specialists in game dev who want to reskill and change their track of career. We have educated 14% of Swedish game dev industry. When it comes to the model which we based on and why it is so effective, it's only 20% of the knowledge you gain from our teachers. And the rest 80% is coming from industry experts who are being recruited and plugged into the different modules of our courses, so you get first-hand education from industry experts, and this webinar is a reflection of this approach. We try to support girls and women to join game dev industry by taking part in different activities and events, boosting this trend. And we have a really high factor of employability. We could say it's even up to 96% of our alumni get the job right after finishing the course. And this is the whole goal of this course, is to land our students a job. Let me quickly guide you through the adventure I had and my students in Warsaw have since September 23. We have 40 people right now on board on 3 educations: game design, game art, and game programming. They came from literally all over the world. We have people from, half of them is Polish, but half is from Italy, Greece, Portugal, Ukraine, Mexico, India, Indonesia, and even Lebanon. So it's really international hub. Not everyone is on this picture because they were still in visa processes at the beginning. How the school is run, a lot of emphasis on soft skills, team building, team activities. Our course starts by creating board games and card games. This is first 2 weeks of the course. Then very quickly, students are in contact with mentors from the industry, experts from different AAA studios are visiting on basically weekly basis the school. We are also very active when it comes to inspiring our students to join industry events. This is from Game Industry Conference in Poznań, a huge event in Poland. It was all about networking, gaining knowledge, approaching studios, showing off themselves. Around 20 students joined us there. And we were visible as a group, and being a part of Futuregames is a leverage for young people to really show off and make connections, because we are supporting them there all over the place. And the way we do marketing also, you probably notice if you follow us on social media, we promote school by promoting students, by promoting their personal brands, by promoting their achievements and their projects and their names. So this is like a mutual symbiotic cooperation, and I would say everybody is happy about this. We are visiting and being visited by industry representatives, by the companies, and we have workshops, and it's all about networking. Students also during this 2.5 years create their own games, so it's very hands-on experience. We team up artists, designers, and programmers and give them theme and tools and ask them to create their own games. The results, the first game project was 3 weeks, created in Unity. The results are really fun, playable, good quality games, which are presented during the jury day to the representatives of the industry. And we also organize pitching day for venture capitals and for some incubators to help find the golden nuggets among these games. We also run advisory board where representatives of game dev companies sit with us and share with us opinions about our curriculum and the way we teach the approach. So, for example, the game producer course is being created right now in direct response to the need communicated by the industry in Poland. So we are not standalone school. We are not in a void. We are more like a function of the industry. And what means CD Projekt being our strategic partner? First of all, tuition in Warsaw is lowered by almost 50% in comparison to tuition in Sweden, in Futuregames Sweden. So our students pay 12,900 euro for the whole education, 2.5 years. The studio will also grant 6 best performing students internship and will cover 1 year tuition. And this webinar is also a result of this cooperation and partnership. So the experts from CD PROJEKT RED are very often participating in our events and joining us at school. And of course, there is on the horizon chance for some people to do internship at CDPR. When it comes to the curriculum, this looks like this. Basically, when you join the school, you are very quickly being thrown on the game project 1. It's around 3 weeks and it's a mess, but you learn a lot about team dynamics, about how to apply your skills to real deals, so to real process of creating a game. And retrospective then after the process really gives you a lot of information how to not overscope, for example, next time. Then there is a period of theory, but it is instantly applied. So everything we teach is hands-on and students get assignments. And we have mentors on site who help with delivering these assignments. So lectures, networking, assignments, and applied theory, it's around 2 months. And then you are thrown on the next game project. It is also in Unity, and then the circle repeats. The projects 3rd and 4th are in Unreal, and they are largest, so they're around 7 and 9 weeks. The great finale of the course is 30 weeks of internship in the game dev studio, which we organize for our students and we moderate. So it's basically on me and marketing team and business development team to build relationship with studios to land internships for our students. And we are right now talking with around 40 AAA, AA, and indie studios in Poland. Techland, Flying Wild Hog, People Can Fly, huge among them. I think I use my time. I will not be boring you with more of these facts. I will send this presentation in a chat. There are some stories of our students, so the different scenarios. Some of them, when they join us, they know they want to work for the one particular company. It's like with Emma Jerlin. She always knew she wants to work for Star Stable, and now she does. Per Stenbeck was one of the first Futuregames alumni joining Hazelight and building this from the bottom to the top. Joanna Kazurinen, different story. Her team created a game How Fish is Made, picked up by Hideo Kojima. They sold 40,000 downloads on Steam, and they created a company around this game. And so on and so on. Each student is a different story, and we also approach students very individually, listening to your needs and where do you want to land in what studio, because and these ideas also change among our students during the course. Just very briefly, we are in Warsaw. You need to relocate if you want to join us. We give some support with visa process by issuing relevant documents, but the process is on you to run it. We don't support you with accommodation, but Warsaw has a vast base of accommodation suited all budgets, basically, and we give some guidance on it. When you finish Futuregames, you will get diploma, which is universally recognized among game dev studios in, I would say, Europe. And education takes place Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. This is in starting point period which you should reserve, but very quickly our students create workflow by themselves. So you can rewatch recorded classes, you can watch them online, so it's very flexible. Okay, guys, that's all from my side. And right now I will leave so the long words from sponsor, and I will leave the stage to Chris and ask you, Chris, to dive into style.
Okay, Peter, thanks for that presentation. Just give me a moment and I will get my presentation ready.
Oh, we have guests from Brazil. Great. Let's see.
Okay, are you seeing the screen okay? And are you hearing me fine?
Yes, now it's okay.
All right. Again, thank you for that presentation. I must say, I think it's really cool for me as well to learn a little bit more about Futuregames in Warsaw. Of course, I've worked with your students several times. And I must also say that I'm very impressed by the quality of the work by the students in Warsaw. And that's really cool also since it's a new school. Yeah, thanks for that. So I will dive into my presentation. And the topic, yes, I'm sure you know, is style in game art. It's about tools and tips to make your game assets stylistically consistent. And it's quite niched, quite specific. But I mean, if you are here, it means that you are probably interested in this topic. And I think it's better to be specific, which is also something that I will come back to in this talk. So the topic, or some of the things we'll talk about, is what is art direction and style in game development. I will also get a little bit like theoretical and maybe even a little bit abstract in the beginning about sort of different ways to think about style, but we will come back to more practical applications in the end. The idea there is, of course, to sort of sow some seeds, maybe introduce some new terms that will sort of be nested in the back of your head and pop up and be of use to you when you're doing your artistic work. And the reason I want to talk about this subject is that I am, of course, as Peter said, head teacher for game artists in Karlstad. And I have also been teaching before in other places. This is a topic that I feel that I see many students struggling with. I think it's something that, understanding style, it takes a little bit of time to actually be able to see style as something different than merely the design or the content of the artwork you are working on. And that's also why I think it's usually former artists and experienced people who go on to become art directors, because you need to sort of train this ability to see and understand style, to be able to vocalize it and sort of work with other people to make it understandable and make frameworks so they can work towards a common style. So most artists, they have a drive and a wish to create their own vision for personal projects, or maybe they have to do it for clients. But again, sort of turning a vision into a framework that other people can work with, that is sort of something that takes more experience and understanding. So whether you are sort of dream of becoming an art director one day, or simply want to understand style better to improve your own artwork, I think and hope that some of this will be useful for you. And I wanted to drop a little disclaimer as well, because we are sharing the stage with some incredibly cool people working on incredibly cool games. And I think some people might be here for that as well, and not just because they are interested in making art for games, or sort of going on that career path. But like I said, I will be sort of quite specifically talking about things that are useful to those who are on that path. But I still think it will be interesting. And after my talk, which isn't super long, hopefully, we will also have a more sort of open discussion with the awesome people from CDPR. So stay tuned for that. Right, I will move on then. So who am I then? My name is Rakkestad. As mentioned, I'm the head teacher for Futuregames game artist discipline in Karlstad. And I'm doing that part-time, and besides that, I will say that I'm an optimistic in the game dev at my own newly started studio. We have a great sort of indie community in Karlstad, which I was fortunate enough to win some money from to develop our own titles. So I'm working on that besides teaching. And my career in games, I started in games and then did like a little loop doing a lot of other different things, and now I'm back to games. So I spent about a decade basically creating stuff for people for cash. And the reason I phrase it like that is because I've really done a lot of different stuff. I've done a lot of music production and performance. I have worked with web design, graphic design and development, worked a lot with print and illustration, and also even some marketing experience. And coincidentally, if you're interested in game design, I think like one of the pathways to becoming an indie dev is doing a lot of weird stuff first. And I think that's what has taken me to where I am. And during all this, I've also been teaching along the way within 3D art, music, and graphic design. So like I said, as a creative, I've always gone where curiosity takes me and done a lot of different stuff. And I think that is why I've been interested in this topic of style, because I have jumped between different industries and mediums and techniques, and come across a lot of different needs for a creative skill set. Training up this ability to be able to see style and adapt it to whatever project and case I'm working on is something that I've had to do. I think I will run out of water, but I need a little sip before we move on. Okay, so first, about art direction in games. This is something that we will get more into after my presentation, since we have an art director, actually two art directors really with us. But we need to understand a little bit about what it is about. So art direction, it refers to defining the visual expression of a game, usually working with defining the art style. And that entails a lot of different work. It's about creating artistic frameworks for the artists to work on, so everyone is pulling in the same direction. I imagine that being a little bit like herding cats, which is something I hope to get some comments on from Remi. It entails making style guides, defining sort of the visual direction of characters, environments, prop design, color schemes, lighting, VFX, and an often overlooked thing when talking about art style is animation. I think I forgot to mention, but I studied animation as well at some point, and animation is also something that has style, that has sort of definable stylistic traits, which is also part of it. And apart from working to define this art style, it's also like people work, you know. It's led by the art director, and there are a lot of people on the art team involved. working with the visual stuff, and it's about making sure that they have what they need. They have the necessary information from designers. They have they know the limitations from programmers and also technical artists about what they sort of can and cannot do when making assets. And of course, the art style and the art direction ties in with the mechanics and game design, but also importantly with marketing and sales. Like, it's a big part of making the audience find and understand that this is a game for them, and that this something that is desirable and relevant for them to be spending their time on, basically. I was in preparation for this, I was watching a GDC talk by Stuart MacDonald called Building a Visual Threshold, which I found very interesting, which is the idea of, in the art direction, creating a sort of an acceptable stepping stone for the artist, for the audience, that will give them sort of the least amount of barrier for them to invest their time in the world, which I think is an interesting concept. Okay, so that's a bit of a broad overview about art direction. So what about art style then? What is this thing that we are making? I thought I would start with showing this. Like, if you just Google art style, Google tries to be helpful and show us this. We can see that art style, it's pixel art, it's realism, it's cartoon, it's painting, fantasy realism. If anyone has tried Adobe Firefly, I think these are more or less the same things that the AI there tries to pass off as style. I would say that no, it's not this. This is not useful to us. I mentioned in the beginning about specificity, and these are very, very broad terms, and therefore I think not very useful for an artist or an art team developing an art style for a game. I would argue instead that these are genres that the style can be developed within, and for many people, maybe that is obvious, but something I see a lot with new artists and students when they are wanting to create a piece, they have the idea that I will make a stylized piece of art, or realistic or something like that. But again, this is not at the sort of appropriate level of understanding style in terms of what we need to effectively work with it when making games. So I propose instead thinking of it as genre, like I said. So these big terms that we heard can be thought of as the genre, as sort of an overarching term, and then instead think of style as how that is executed within this. So here we have a little example, like Borderlands, new Zelda games, and Cuphead can all be arguably said to be a cartoon or stylized or something like that, but obviously they look completely different. So if you told the artist to just make me a game or game assets that look comic or stylized, you will end up with completely different results. So again, it's not really useful, and this sort of seeing style as something nested within genre, it's not my idea. It's a common way to view it within other areas of art as well, in theater, literature, and music. So I think that's a useful thing to think about, but again, not something I see so much in relation to game art, interestingly. Right, so let's jump on. So I wanted to talk about sort of breaking down visual expression. So we talked about you know, style being sort of the how it's done. So there are obviously many things sort of playing at play to sort of deliver the expression of how we see something. And here is an example of how to break down this visual expression that I also found from a cool GDC talk called 3 Steps to Becoming a Better Artist from the ArenaNet, or at that point, concept artist, Horia Dachu. But I saw now that he is now an art director. So his words are good to go by, I think. And he sort of breaks it down like this, that you, on one hand, you have the idea, sort of what it is, and you have the design, where you have stylistic choices like shape, language, and proportion. And then you have the technique, like how is this, how is it made? Is it rendered like an oil painting, or like a sketch, or sort of a more like purely digital type of rendering? And then sort of overarching that is the tone. So is it meant to be dark and moody? Is it light and cheery? Is it sort of friendly and inviting? Or is it off-putting and scary, sad, you know? Can be many things, or even like historical. Can be many ways to look at that. And that is all then tied up and sort of bound into the execution. So and that was interesting to me. And I think this is a very viable way to break down visual expression if you are coming from the perspective of someone designing. So if you are a concept artist, and maybe we can argue about this later, Simon, then this is a good way to approach it, because you are tasked with interpreting the idea and coming up with a design. But for the students that I work with and production artists, that's not really the case, you know, because the idea will be defined already, and the concept artist will have sort of made a lot of choices about the shape, language, and proportions, and some lead will have okayed that and said, yes, this is the design we're going for. This is something that we will make. So that's why I think that for the production artist, the 3D artist making assets and interpreting the design, the area that they have a lot of impact in is the execution. Like when you're taking the design and making that 3D. So in that case, I think like breaking it down a little bit differently might be useful. I actually have a sort of interesting source for this that I will come back to later. Here I'm breaking it down into matter, which is I'm sort of lumping together the idea and the concept and the design, like what we are making. That is one aspect of it. And then the medium, which sort of are the techniques and the tools we are using, but also the platform, like what will be the end result, or sort of the where is the final viewer sort of experiencing this. And finally, the one that I will focus on, manner, which again is the how, the part that the 3D artist has control over, the style and the execution. And I thought I would do a little detour here to the mountains of Norway. So when I was doing my detour away from the game industry and exploring lots of other different things, one of the things I did was I studied a master's degree in traditional Norwegian folk art with a specialization in music. And there I was very interested in sort of understanding the different styles, because sort of each mountain village would maybe play the same tunes, but they would play it slightly differently. But they would also talk about style, just like artists. But to them, style, it wasn't about like what instruments are they using or what tunes are they playing. It was about very fine nuances of exactly how are they performing those tunes. What is the intonation, the phrasing, the tempo, and other things like that, which coincidentally requires quite a lot of expertise to pick up on. Like someone hearing it for the first time wouldn't be able to even see it. And again, it ties back to this that I think seeing and understanding style is something that that sort of comes a bit later, after you have started mastering different techniques and stuff like that. And again, I thought it was an interesting parallel to the production artist and the 3D artist, who sort of the what, you know, the tune is defined, the design is made, and the medium, in this case the instrument, it's well, in the other case it would be something like 3D, you know, it's a 3D game or it's a pixel art game, it's already defined, but the part that they are focused on as sort of artisans or masters of this craft is the execution. Right. So with this in mind, I thought I would do a little sort of cheeky, exaggerated example here. We are seeing a lot of orcs, and I would say if we look at it on quite a surface level, then we can say that like if we could give 4 artists the same job, and we could say make an orc. It should have green skin, it should have red armor, it should have black hair, it should have spikes, it should have tusks, etc., etc. And we might get back something like this, you know. And again, with this sort of overarching view of style, this sort of, it would be viable for the artists to do this, but for a game production, this wouldn't be good, you know. We would have orcs that wouldn't even see each other as orcs. So again, it's an example of the subject matter, the sort of stylized orc barbarian is the same. The medium is the same. It's like 3D art with PBR textures, but still they look very, very different. And like I think for concept artists, you would say that, okay, these are also, the design is also quite different in this case. And that's absolutely true, but I still think they are also affected by a lot by sort of the choices in how it is executed, and I humbly suggest that they, if presented to the art director, he would not be happy with this bunch of orcs that he got. And now I'm going out on thin ice and trying to talk about the same with CDPR stuff. So here it gets sort of harder to distinguish them, but I think that sort of shows the importance of style and execution even better. But because these are, you know, it's the same character, they are very, very similar. I think, you know, it might be possible that they are actually all made from the same 3D model, that a marketing artist or something like that has worked from the same base. But we can still see, because each of these are from different sort of CDPR and Witcher related products. They, you know, if we take the Geralt on the right and put him with the Geralt on the left, it would look really, really strange. So, and you know, we can get really specific. Like if we look at the trimmings on the armor of the one in the center, we can see that these are sort of more clean, whereas on the left it's sort of more high fidelity. There's more scuff and wear and tear, and a lot more texture detail going on in this. So again, even though they are very similar, I think they would look strange standing next to each other. And there's a lot of, I would assume, considerations here going into this as for sort of the medium, like where is this piece of art going to be experienced? And again, these are all slightly different games. You know, it might be that having this sort of reddish brown trimming will be readable at a smaller scale, whereas the Geralt on the left is a type of rendition that you would see more up close, and then there's a room for a lot more texture detail and stuff like that. So hopefully I'm getting the point across here that even though the design can be similar and the medium and sort of the technical framework you're working within can be very similar, we can still end up with very critical variation in the overall stylistic impression based on very specific details in the execution done by the artist. That would the end result would be again that the art director might reject this and say, no, this doesn't fit together. So how do we know whether we are on the right path or not? And that's something that we will get into. I also want to I'm going to jump back to this music analogy a little bit to talk about sort of different way to understand style, which I think is also important. And I'm showing some quotes here from it's like a very sort of what can you say, very weird source to bring out, like Norwegian folk music PhDs. But again, there's some interesting points about style here. So style is, of course, the result of work done by the artist, and sort of it's defined by the art team working on it. But it also, you know, it lives in cooperation with the viewers, the people who will experience this art. And in the end, they are sort of the final arbiters or judges of whether or not the style works. So I found some interesting quotes here where instead of understanding style as sort of a set of rules for what you can do, you can look at style as sort of a framework where if you break it, then it is no longer part of that style. So what constitutes the style is sort of how far you can stretch it before it breaks, and the people who are experiencing that style no longer accepts it as being that style. I found this quote good as well, that exploring opportunities and limits within the style happens within finite but expandable horizons. And this is from a very interesting but extremely nerdy PhD by Mats Johansson, Norwegian folk music researcher. So my aim with all of this is not at all to be pedantic and draw lines in the sand about definitions of style and things like that. But I want to sort of raise awareness on style as something pertaining to the specific execution, and how awareness of this can help direct your artistic outcome. Whereas having a very broad definition of style can sort of trip you up and be more loose in your approach to style than what is sort of helpful to you to get where you want. And this can become really complicated, like both understanding style as execution and sort of details about color and shape language and level of detail and things like that, but also as something that is existing in a dialogue with a viewer. And one cool example I thought about for how complex this can be is these it's like speeder hover bikes from the recent Star Wars show, The Book of Boba Fett. so these, I think, are really interesting and something that probably posed a considerable challenge both for the concept designers and the artists that had to make these things. And it's a great example of not making stuff easy for yourself when designing something. So like on one hand, you have the challenge of sort of creating a consistent style at all, but on the other hand, you might be forced to mix up a lot of different styles. So if we look at these bikes and think of the context they are within, we can see that it's Star Wars, so it has to have a style that people would accept as fitting with the Star Wars universe. It's sci-fi, you know, it's flying bikes. It's not something we have in real life. So they have to somehow convey that through their design in a way that we buy and accept this. But also thrown into the mix, we have the fact that these are sort of 40s and 50s car sort of manufacturer inspired, like they're inspired by all retro vehicles. And then lastly, to make it even more complex, this is, yes, it's Star Wars, but it is also, you know, sort of retro Star Wars. That's the thing they did with these sort of new series. They want to sort of bring back the style of the old Star Wars movies. But then again, as an added layer, there is, of course, specific art direction to this show as well. So there are many, many layers of style and considerations that go into pulling off a design like this. And I'm not making any sort of judgment on whether or not that works, but I am definitely recognizing what an amazing challenge it would be to work with something like this. And of course, a lot of that challenge falls on the concept artists and sort of designers who are making this, but the 3D artist as well. And in this case, I think it was probably made both by 3D artists and sort of prop makers doing sort of real effects. The challenge of combining the shape language and picking the correct color hues and everything to make this work and read as the right sort of stylistic expression with all this consideration is a really big challenge. And now I'm going to step out on the thin ice again and bring up this, which I'm sure that Remi is very familiar with. I'm not going to sort of be too frisky and bold about how I look at this, but I think it was a really interesting example as well, because it's also sort of you know, this is from Gwent, the Witcher card game, and this is also a case where you have sort of a spin-off from an original franchise, and you are trying to tie different concepts together in the same thing. And I thought the logo here was very, very interesting. Because on one side you need to sort of get across the impression that it has something to do with Witcher, it has something to do with sort of fantasy, but also that it's a bit of a different genre. You know, it's not necessarily this very deep and complex third-person action experience. It's like a card game, more strategic game, and I specifically noticed that. To me, when I look at it, I get a little bit of like a casino vibe, like from this logo, which I think was very cool and very effective to like convey the message of what this is in relation to Witcher overall, which I thought was very cool. Okay, so I'm sort of moving to the end of the sort of theoretical backdrop about this, and then we will start to get a little bit more specific about how to work with this stuff. But I want to mention this about stylization as well, because I think it's another interesting thing to keep in mind. Here's like a basic definition of stylization: to represent or design according to a style or stylistic pattern, rather than according to nature or tradition. Like you are making a a conscious choice of what you want this stylistic expression to be, and you're working towards that. For my own part, the definition I use is stylization is an act of simplifying form towards an artistic purpose. And the thing I want to really draw attention to here is that every brushstroke or vertex you move is an action that contributes to the overall style. And this is sort of the crux of my point here, that as an artist trying to execute someone else's design, like every little move you make is contributing to the final expression, the final stylistic expression. And that is something that happens sort of intrinsically, whether we are sort of aware of it or in control of it or not. This process is happening. And you know, when we are making any kind of art, we are we always do some sort of abstraction and stylization, because we are not photocopying from real life. We are always imposing some kind of stylistic form on what we are creating. So with that in mind, I wanted to mention this briefly as well, because a lot of people, they come into art because they have you know, a drive and a passion to create something on their own. And I think it's something to be very aware of, that when you are working in game production, you are working in a team and you're working towards a common goal that you are defining. You are not necessarily expressing yourself as an artist, you know, expressing your inner emotion, in the sense that we also often identify or sort of think about when we think about art. And that can be a bit hard for some people to accept. And I think it's something that should be mentioned and people should be aware of when looking at this path. So like fine art is one thing, and they're sort of having a sort of less conscious decision about style, or sort of accepting the style you have, or developing a very, very personal style is useful, or it's perfectly acceptable. But for working in production with other people, then you need to have this ability to adapt and change your style according to the needs of the project. Of course, it's also a good idea to try to get work in the studio that does a style that you like and are comfortable with, or you will just make your life hellish. I mean, maybe you like pain, but that's what I would say, at least. Okay, so let's look at some specific things that you can use and keep in mind when looking at style. So what I would look for is style markers. So I would look at this as a sort of tent pegs that sort of hold up the style. And there's always some leeway, like I talked about, like style. It operates within a finite but sort of a stretchable framework. So even if you see a style marker, there's probably some room to stretch it, but it will break at some point. And I would divide these style markers into two main categories. You have descriptive style markers that are sort of objective sort of properties of the art, like the color palette that is being used, the level of detail, like is this art, does it have a lot of ornamentation? Is there a lot of texture detail going on, or is it more clean? Like, is it like the geometry, for instance, if it's 3D, is there a lot of geometry being used, or is the geometry more simple? And all of these are sort of parameters that can be tweaked in different directions. So you can have quite simple geometry for a character, say, but you might have complex textures, or it might be the other way around, that you have quite dense geometry, like there's a lot of geometrical detail, but the textures are more simple. So on the one hand, those are sort of more objective markers of style that you can analyze in the style that you are trying to follow, or potentially the concept you are working from, and sort of make note of and use as a checklist. On the other hand, and this relates to the point of style, seeing style as sort of a dialogue with the viewer and the audience. I've sort of dubbed this normative style markers, or sort of things that the viewer thinks are important to identify something as a style. So it's sort of more of a value judgment of what makes it look right. And some examples could be something like, The Witcher art is really grimdark. It's like the perfect example of grimdark. Or Star Wars is definitely best with practical effects. You know, if you want it to be Star Warsy, you need to do, it has to be practical. So the difference is like the descriptive markers are very objective and very tied to specific of how the art looks, whereas the normative ones, they can be sort of anything. It's more of a social thing, like what people view as this style. Now I will come back to this word specificity. So I think I have thoroughly drilled in the point that style is about execution. Like if you want to make assets that really fit with the game you're working on, you need to be specific about how you do it, and identify these style markers and apply them. So I wanted to show a cool example of this. Again, going a little bit back to what we said about it. Like if you give two artists the same task to make stylized rocks, even if you're quite specific and say like we want it to be bold and have exaggerated forms and have a really readable silhouette, you can still end up with quite different results. So these are example of rocks that I found on ArtStation from the games Heroes of the Storm and Darksiders. And I think these are interesting because I think they're, I can't remember who, but I think there are even some of the same artists working on these assets. But if you look at it, like I would argue, at least maybe it's too strict, I don't know, but I would argue that these don't really fit together, even though they are exaggerated, they are bold and stylized, because the approach to how they stylize these rocks is different. With the Heroes of the Storm one, we see that there are bigger, rounder shapes, really sort of a more rounded silhouette. Whereas sort of the smaller details are quite simple. So you have big flat surfaces, and then you have these quite clear lines going through it. Whereas the Darksiders rocks, in some ways, is more blocky in shape, but there is a lot more surface detail going on. So these are the kind of things that I would look for and take note of if trying to sort of make more rocks that would fit in either of these games. So here is another example from the same games and the same things, and I think it's really interesting to look at the wood here. And I have to say, like, these are some really cool sculpts, by the way. Like, I really want to appreciate that. But if we look at the wood here, there has been some different choices about how to stylize wood. So in the Heroes of the Storm one, we can see that the wood is quite flat, with these very clear lines that is suggesting to us the surface, sort of the tactility of this wood. Whereas with the barrels from Darksiders, they don't have as much of these sort of fine surface details lines. Instead, they have quite big discrepancies in the shapes that is sort of giving us this wood feeling. So again, I would say that these don't quite fit within the same style, even though if you go one level up, they would tick a lot of the same boxes. Right. So lastly, like the area that you will often get fracked, so to speak, as an artist trying to work with style, and is when you're transferring to the art to 3D art. And I would say don't be discouraged by this. You should absolutely not feel bad if you are a 3D artist and you struggle to convert 2D work to amazing 3D models that match the design. I was at a talk with Peter Desev, really famous character designer who designed the characters for Ice Age, amongst others. He was in general absolutely infuriated by 3D artists, because they would always take his designs that had been approved by an art director, and in his eyes sort of mangle them with their 3D models, which I thought was hilarious. But obviously there needs to be a translation there, and it is hard. But I think if you keep in mind the idea of style markers and the fact that as an artist transferring 2D art to 3D, your execution and your choices have a really big impact on the final style, then I think you will be okay. But again, like even the pros can mess this up. I have an example here of a really iconic character, Sonic the Hedgehog in his sort of original form. And if we were to transfer him to 3D, we might end up with something like this. Like, he's changed a bit. There are some variants in the shape, like the tops of his shoes are now these weird rings. His smile looks sort of a bit stranger than what it does. They moved his spikes a little bit to make them fit into 3D space in a logical sense. But yeah, we accept that. They've stretched sort of the boundaries of style a little bit, but we accept it. And then we get something like this. It's like, okay, the legs, they are longer, the arms are longer, his fingers are longer, he's taller in general. But you know, it's okay, I guess. It's we still accept it as Sonic. So yeah, definitely. And then this appeared, and the world was absolutely infuriated. What is this thing? So what is happening here? It was a clear no from the world. So if this story is new to you, there was a trailer released for a live-action Sonic movie in 2019, where we got to see this sort of a 3D interpretation of Sonic. And the audience response was a definite nope. We are not accepting this, and it resulted in the studio sort of taking it back and going back to the drawing board and basically replacing this version of Sonic. And so to someone sort of not working with this, I would imagine that they would think that the problem here is that it's 3D. So it's something to do with the medium. But I think that the other examples here show that that's fine. Sonic can be 3D, and we still accept him as Sonic. And I think that even adding this fur that he has would be acceptable. So I think it's sort of the collection of changes and stretching and adaptation of these style markers that make us not accept it and actually reject this. So they made him 3D. Okay, we can buy that. Then they changed his proportions. It's like, okay, now we're starting to stretch it a bit. And then they sort of they narrowed out his face. They changed his eyes. They gave him human teeth, and sort of changed his body language and posture in general. So basically, like they're just stretching it until it breaks, and then people don't accept it anymore. And then that's when the audience will really weigh in about what they think about your style. I think lastly here I wanted to do a little sort of plug for one of my or our Futuregames students, and show sort of a successful conversion, I would say, from 2D to 3D. So here we have a concept art by Andrew Porter. who's now an art director at Gardens Interactive. Really cool sort of, I'm going to sort of eat my hat there and say that it's stylized, you know, but it has a very cool sort of 2D hand-painted feeling. And this is one of our students' work, which I think did an absolutely amazing job of capturing this. Of course, you can always find discrepancies, but I would argue that it's better than the Sonic conversion. And the thing is here that I know that our student Ambar, she did some very meticulous work in analyzing the style of the concept and going back and forth and really exploring the different workflows and techniques to find the right way to capture this concept. I was told by one of my colleagues to also include some work in progress stuff, just in case someone didn't believe that it was actually a 3D model and not a paint over. So that sort of concludes my talk. I wanted to end by saying that sort of the main takeaways I want to give from this is, I think it's a good idea to realize the concept of genre and style as separate things when designing and planning your work. I think viewing it as too broad can be a bit detrimental and harm you in ways that you maybe didn't know about. And I would say that style is dependent upon execution, so pay a great attention to the choices you are making. And lastly, details really do matter, so be specific in your choices. And I want to just quickly show some sources in case you are somehow curious about some of the ones I mentioned. You can find this GDC talks on YouTube. If you, for some reason, want to read a very nerdy PhD about the rhythms in Norwegian folk music, you can look up Mats Johansson's work on that. I would suggest then reading the introduction, because that's where he talks some really interesting stuff about style, and then it gets too nerdy. Yeah, that's it for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Extremely interesting, even for me, being a marketing guy. No, really cool stuff. Thank you very much. And let me just point out that you inspired here a trend on the chat, and we created a platform. Bartosz gave an idea for people to connect among the audience. I just need to say I applaud this idea. We are all about making connections. So whoever is right now in the audience, guys, connect with each other. It's the same what's happening in our school. Students learn from each other, you know, and support each other. And our role is just to stimulate it. Chris, we have a big chunk of questions to our guests.
Yes.
And you will be in charge of asking them. If I just may add briefly one note, I will, guys from the audience, I will put a link for the WeTransfer for you to download the presentation if somebody was late for the opening commercials. So here they are under this link. And Chris, our guests are all yours.
Okay, thank you. So are you with us, or did I infuriate you or bore you to death?
I'm still alive. Thank you so much for the presentation, though, man. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I thought about what would be the best segue here, and I think, like, you know, Piotr talked a little bit about how Futuregames works and the sort of industry connections we have and things like that, and that's something that I wanted to mention as well, that students sometimes underappreciate, and I think, like, even people in general, like, don't appreciate how cool it is to have access to people like you to talk to about things like this. You know, I would say that it's a bit like going to music school and having sort of James Hetfield showing up one day and saying, like, okay, I'm going to teach you to make some cool guitar riffs.
For a second there, I was afraid you're going to say it's just like going to museum, because this is how I feel sometimes. Like, but yeah, by all means, networking is a very important part of every job, to be honest, and in every industry. So guys, create the Discord servers, gather together, talk to each other, learn from each other. show your art around, and you'll benefit from that, definitely.
Absolutely, I would agree. I think it's like, for me, I've seen that a lot of more doors open for me when I show my art. I think that's really hard for artists sometimes, but and usually the first art you make is really an expression of yourself, you know. So if you are open with that, then it can lead you in some really cool places.
Absolutely, and you know, showing your art gives you also a platform to start a conversation about something meaningful to you and your peers, right? So it just brings people together. Like, it sounds cliche to some extent, but art brings people together. That's the truth. Oh my God, English is so
Yeah.
today.
I sympathize. So I think that's a good way to get into our first question. Like I've talked a bit about who I am, and I think like most of the audience probably know a little bit about who you are. But I think it would be great if both you, Remi, and Simon would sort of say quickly who you are. But then the first question I want to pose is like, what was your path to the roles that you have now? And was it something that you had a conscious plan as a sort of your career goal, or if it developed organically? And I pose these questions to both of you.
All right. So allow me to start. Hello, guys. My name is Remi Nowakowski. I'm an art director at CD PROJEKT RED. I've started my career in games 25 years ago as a texture artist, back then in a time where you had to take analog photos of stuff that you wanted to turn into textures, then develop them, then scan them, and then you could go to Photoshop and do some magic on top of that. So when I started my career in games, I wasn't really actually thinking about career per se, if you know what I mean. Like, I was looking for a stable job that would be fun and I would get paid for. That's the honest truth. But you know, when time was passing by, I realized that among artists, many of whom were way more talented than I am, there was a niche that I could get into by and having an opportunity to both produce the assets for the game and have a significant impact on how the visuals look, and that would be the manager's path. So when thinking about a career in games, at least at CD Projekt Red, we're always thinking about the fact that there are at least two paths available to each artist. Like, one would be focused totally on creating assets, creating art, delivering art, being an artist per se. And this is what we call an expert path. But at the same time, we do need people who can work with artists effectively, deliver some art from time to time, but would take care of the people, take care of the project needs and the team's needs as well. And this would be a managerial path. So I somehow stranded into the managerial path, but I am happy that I did, actually, because I am having an opportunity to work with so many talented people along the way that probably sitting by my desk and doing my stuff only, I would never have this opportunity. So yeah, mic is yours, Simon.
Yeah, thanks. So hello, my name is Simon Urban. I work in an industry for about 16 years now, and I've been doing many various roles within art art path, starting from concept art, then doing level art. Level art is sometimes called environment art. It depends on the company. I was doing lighting as well, leading teams, art directing, and right now I work as a concept artist. And actually, it was my conscious choice to resign from leading and art directing, and maybe we will be talking about it later. Yeah, but generally in my career, it developed kind of organically that I was kind of put into the leadership roles. Maybe I was more proactive than others. I don't know, because I was so happy because of the fact that I work in games that I always wanted to know more. I was going to the other departments, asking what they need, for example, and how we can do things better. And it kind of developed organically, because I didn't want it to be in any managerial position, to be honest. However, at some time I wanted to be art director, because it was like it was for me something like the top what you can do in art, because it is like steering like the whole project into a certain direction. But still, I love doing art by myself so much that I wanted to go back to this to just doing art.
Yeah, thank you both for those really interesting answers. Like, I think I really want to like get to the next question, because it's so relevant to how you both describe your career paths. And the thing that that I've been thinking of is like, how do you think the skill set of an art director compares to that which is required of an artist? And in a way, you sort of answer the next part of the question, like if you think there is a direct path from junior artist to art director, or if you think that it requires fundamentally different skill sets. And it seems that like initially you had like similar paths, but ended up making different choices, which I think is super interesting. So I would like to pose the question to both. Like, do you think the skill set are different, but also sort of the personality required, if it's different?
That's a hard one, to be honest. Like in general, I don't think the skill set is that much different. Like I would consider it what an art director needs is a skill set of an artist plus some additional stuff. So we started very similar, both Szymon and I believe many of the managers that we have in games industry right now started in a pretty similar way. Like we were working in smaller studios, smaller teams. So it's a normal thing that in a smaller team, you have to wear more than one hat. Right, so I would be, for example, texture artist, but also UI artist and the lighting artist, sometimes level artist as well. And it's definitely very beneficial for an art director to have this kind of experience and these things in the tool belt. But it's not entirely necessary. It helps a lot, but it's what is the most needed thing from a artist skill, maybe not skill set, but mindset definitely, is being sensitive to art, right? Like being light sensitive, color sensitive, shape sensitive, all of those things. And I would say any ambitious artist could become an art director, should they find an environment where it can happen. So it's not a fundamentally different kinds of skills. You have to learn quite a lot about managing people and sacrificing your own artwork or your own doing to the greater goal, which is the good of the project. And you need to learn how to delegate stuff, how to allow people, the artist, to have space to create, while you're just basically leading the way by either by example or by showing the right path to choose. So this is my 2 cents in this question.
Yeah, I think it's good to know that you cannot like become art director from I don't know, from no experience, I would say, yeah, because I know that in different industries maybe there are some positions that you can, I don't know, do some studies and then jump straight out to some managerial path. But here you have to be artist for some time, because you have to know your you have to know your part. Yeah, you have to know, as Remi said, you have to know about lighting, compositions. Like you have to be sensitive for art, and you have to have great eye, yeah, for it. But you don't have to be the best artist. You don't have to create the best images from the team, I would say. But you have to have really deep understanding of art and really great soft skills. Yeah, because it's for major part of the time is just talking with people. Yeah, talking with people, and it's not common for artists, I would say, to be good in it.
Amen to that.
It can be learned to some degree, yeah, but you have to know that this is big part of the job.
Yeah, really interesting, guys. If I can make a little follow-up on that, like I got the impression from you, Szymon, that you felt as you were moving into managerial position that you were sort of sacrificing your art a little bit. And you also mentioned that, Remi. Do you like? But Remi, do you feel that, like, was it a sacrifice, sort of moving a little bit away from the art, or was it like more that you saw an opportunity to gain something? I'm a little bit interested in hearing more about that transition and that choice.
It's definitely a trade-off, like it's a trade-off situation. You need to give up on something in order to be able to do something else. And just like Szymon said, the biggest part of my day is talking to the other people, and not necessarily the artists. I do talk to all of our peers and stakeholders in the studio, and I keep on conversating with gameplay designers, level designers, narrative writers, people from all disciplines. And yeah, it causes me to be in a situation where I rarely have time to create something with my own hands. Don't get me wrong, I keep on drawing for myself. I keep on drawing in the evenings, not necessarily anything related to the project I work on, but definitely there is a trade-off there if you choose the managerial path.
I'm curious, Szymon, like, when you went back to being an expert artist, did you feel that you lost something then as well?
No, I felt like I regained everything. Will to live and no, but the choice was dictated mostly because of my will to like steer everybody and everything. Yeah, because I love inventing worlds. I love inventing like new ideas, making it like visually interesting, and I felt that I would probably not leave enough room for other artists. So I felt that it would be better if I not will do harm to them, so, and to myself as well. Yeah.
Well, I would say that you're both doing absolutely killer work that the world can't live without. So I'm happy you are where you are. But I am wondering if Remi will start to feel inspired from hearing Szymon talk here. If he will start looking for the escape hatch.
I got very inspired by your presentation, for example. Like the moment you've mentioned the way we describe the style, and by quoting this sentence that Witcher art is grim dark, Like, you know, it actually reminded me what we were repeating to our new artist, the artist joining the team back then when I was working on Gwent. Like, we would say, take into consideration that the Witcher world is a dark fantasy world. It's green, but it's beautiful. It's the most beautiful place you can imagine, but it's occupied by monsters.
Mm.
And then on top of that, there are also vampires, werewolves, and neckers, but monsters. Remember about the monsters. So one of the things that we did to convey the message, what is the expect outcome of the artwork we create for Gwent, was to remember that in the Witcher world, humans are probably the worst thing that happened. And it connects to how we describe the style. And you know, all that train of thoughts was inspired by your presentation today. So
wow. That's cool to hear. That's very cool to hear. Yeah, I think, you know, that is absolutely what makes The Witcher special as well. This sort of layering of moods and atmospheres, and sort of flipping the script a little bit on the relation between sort of the supernatural and the scary, and the safe and the human and the well-known. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, wait for Project Polaris. This will be something. Like, wait for it. Just wait for it.
I am. Okay. So I think we are covering a lot with these questions. So I have to like check if we are making some of my questions redundant. But we did discuss this a little bit earlier. But from listening to people talk about art direction, I sort of have the thought about this idea that people are approaching it in two different ways. Sort of some people focus more on the soft skills about being sort of a manager, but I think of it more as like being an enabler and sort of setting up the team to use their artistic resources in the best way to create amazing art. And others where it's more, and I think that maybe that idea comes more from film, but about being this person with a really strong vision and sort of leading the way for the art team towards that direction. And I would really like to hear your perspective on that from both of you.
So, you know, definitely there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? There's no one definite answer. This is the proper way to do it. So I totally agree that, you know, the art directors in games industry are somewhere on the spectrum between being totally hands-on and vision-driven, and they know exactly what they want to do, and the ones that would rather allow or enable the team to co-create the vision. And I personally enjoy working with people. Like, this is funny for me, and it was a discovery for me that I do enjoy working with people that close, because I always considered myself an introvert, trained to appear extrovert when it's needed, but still. So the thing is that I prefer working together with people. Like, I would sit down with the concept art team, start brainstorming, throwing ideas, then ask them to draw something. I would draw something myself probably, and then get too ashamed to show it to them because they're much better than I am. But don't tell them. But this is my preferred way of working, right? Like, I always consider there might be a better idea around the corner in the pre-production phase before we get into production. I love brainstorming. I love the entire pre-production process, working with concept artists, you know, ideating the world where we will put the action of the game in. So yeah, myself, I'm an enabler more than a visionary. But definitely there are examples of games and art directors that had this very specific vision, and they were just building the team to execute this specific vision. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you can be a part of the team, because making games is a team effort, right? As long as you are able to be a part of the team and you find people that will follow you, each of those options is on the table.
Cool. Simon, do you have some?
Yeah. So this is the question that I kind of answered a little bit in the previous one. Yeah. So yeah, this was my case. Yeah. So I wanted to be like more hands-on. Yeah. I wanted to do like everything, and yeah, and I found that this is not good for the people, and I imagine myself doing work like working with such an art director or lead, and I thought that this is not cool. But yeah, for sure there is a way to find a sweet spot, but generally I think it is a great danger to try to do too much by yourself. Yeah, and I think you have to trust people and to give them some room for creation. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. Like I felt like shooting in something there. Like I was working for a freelancer for a decade, like as a sole contractor, moving from project to project, and one of the things that sort of made me go into teaching and sort of trying to start a studio and stuff like that is that I really wanted the experience of working with other people on a more consistent basis. Like even though I also consider myself an introvert and you know yeah, things like that, then it's something I started really missing, and seeing that when I worked together with other people on cool projects, it was just a completely different personal experience in terms of how rewarding it is.
Yeah, and it also depends on a studio and on a project. Yeah, because for example, if you're working on some small project, like you have only a couple of artists, then you actually have to do a lot of work by yourself, and you have like more time to do it. But if you work on a big project for a big studio, there are so many topics. Yeah, like you have almost only meetings in your calendar, and you kind of are forced to only manage to only make a decisions. Yeah.
For those who didn't know, Phantom Liberty, the expansion pack to Cyberpunk 2077, required 4 art directors to work on. So wow. This is everything scales, right? It's about scale.
Was there ever a case where you needed like an art director?
Oh yeah, constantly, man. You always want to have the one person capable of making the final call, because otherwise you will just drown in the infinite sea of doubts and the different opinions, right? So yes, you need someone to make the final decision, but in order to proceed with the project, we required 4 art directors to work on it.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, sort of having a clear division of the burden of responsibility is quite important, I think.
Yes, it's crucial, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So we are sort of moving into a bit more nitty-gritty already. So I see we want to leave some time for audience questions as well, but I want to at least touch on some of the questions that are going more specifically on sort of the craft of art direction. And I had this, I don't think it's inflammatory, but sort of hypothesis or what you would call it. I've heard this quote. It's it was by the art director of what is D3T, I think. I heard on a podcast. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name right now, but yeah, he said that consistency is the hallmark of great art direction, and I think that you can both weigh in on that. Like, is that the statement that you agree with, that consistency is sort of very at the top of the chain of what makes art direction good? Or do you have like some other personal go-tos, like example of what is the holy grail of art direction, so to speak?
It's a hard one. I personally am an agent of order, if you know what I mean. Like, I hate the mess, and inconsistency in visuals create my impression of a mess, of chaos. Not a big fan of that, really. So I would say it's a very personal thing, and again, there's many ways to do things, and you can be quite successful also on the visual side with a project that is less consistent visually. But for me personally, a staple of a good art director is the coherency of all visuals within the assumed style of the project.
Yeah, I would just say that the bigger project you have, or maybe the bigger world you are creating, the more diverse it should be, because you don't want to bore the player to death. And I would say that in that case, even the more important is to have consistency in the rules that actually make this world working. Yeah, because you can have like variety of styles, variety of visual motifs. For example, in Cyberpunk we have these 4 styles, and even some of the I don't know, objects or architecture or I don't know, everything. Some of the pieces could look even different from this whole 4 styles, but the most important is thinking about how this world actually works. So I will give an example. In Cyberpunk, at least in this area of near the Night City, like environment is destroyed. So in order to have nice looking plants, you have to control it somehow, yeah, by technology, of course. And every palm tree in a night city has like the small device connected to it, like providing some nutrition, water, probably, yeah. And if you want to have a jungle, you don't make it in the wild, but where do you have a jungle? You have it in a closed skyscraper of Arasaka without any windows, because if you would make like it under glass dome, it would be sci-fi, not cyberpunk. So you have it strictly controlled inside the Arasaka building. And I find this fact even more important than how all these devices controlling these plants actually look like. Yeah, of course, the look is very important, but if you want to create something new in this world, the rules of the world are even more important.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's absolutely fantastic, and it's something that I hear often concept artists talk about. You know, that it is adhering to these underlying rules and sort of fundamental principles of the world that you're working within. I think that's really cool. Piotr, I think we want to leave some time for audience questions, right? Can we do one more, or is it now time we let the audience have at it a bit?
I think your questions are so good, so you are good to go, but and cover a lot of questions I see on chat. But bear in mind that we have still 220 people waiting there, most of them to ask something. So yeah, please let's make it quick.
Okay, I will do one more question because I think we can cover a lot of interesting stuff for people there. And that is that for both of you, I think, from looking at your background and portfolios and stuff, you have both worked from sort of established IPs and also established art styles and completely new ones. And I think this is a really interesting question. Like, how do you approach those cases differently? Art directing for an established style and IP versus something completely original.
Okay, so both can be fun. Okay, let's agree on that. In general, under the sheets, they're both pretty similar processes. Like the more straightforward and let's call it simple situation is when you have to come up with a style for the new game, and you are completely unrestricted and you're taking on something original. So you just, depending on how you prefer, or you either sit down yourself and start sketching, drawing, gathering inspirations and stuff like that, or you can do it with your team. I would probably invite my concept art team to do it with me. We would gather a lot of references, start sketching, up until to the moment where we have a set of key visuals that define every important visual aspect of the game. And then we go into production. While with the established IP, it's a bit different because you start with an attempt to understand what is important to that franchise, to that game, to that genre. In an ideal scenario, you would also have an art Bible to accompany you with that, that would deliver a lot of answers to your questions. But the first thing to do is to decipher what was in the previous games and why it was there and what is important. What are the visual pillars of this particular franchise? Once you've got that, you just invite people, sit down, come up with key visuals, and go into production. So in general, the processes are quite similar. One thing that is also very similar, regardless to the fact whether you're working on something completely new and original or already established, is that when you have the vision, when you have the visual pillars of the game defined, go out and communicate it, and then keep returning and keep communicating it, and keep asking people to play the game, to see how everything they come up with gets into the game, how it fits, whether it fits. And so keep preaching, keep talking about the vision, keep talking about what is important to you. Otherwise, you won't get anywhere near coherency, whether you want it or not.
So can I follow up that? Are you saying that you feel like you have to be a little bit of a missionary for your vision?
That's a very polite way of saying that. Yes.
Cool. Yeah. What about Simon?
Yeah, I think it's quite easy and straightforward. Like when you create something new, you have like great opportunity to like for every artist involved to ask what they like and what they would like to do, and does it and is it in line with the ideas from other departments. And if you work on already established franchise, you would better have to have really great documentation. In case of art, this is often called art Bible, where you have like the rules that rule the world, the art styles in the that work with that genre or with just in that world, yeah. And you base on it, yeah. For example, when we were making Phantom Liberty, we had a really great foundation made from the base game, yeah. And even though we created even new styles, for Dogtown in Phantom Liberty. It was all based on these experiences and guidelines from the base game.
Yeah, very cool. I wanted to ask a quick follow-up there. I thought it was really interesting that you mentioned sort of user testing, if I understood you correctly there, Remi. And this is, of course, something that since at Futuregames, we also train designers and programmers, and we have game projects making games and stuff. That's something we try to do as much as possible. And I know like most game developers are very big on this. But this idea of sort of testing the art style as well, like usually it's a focus on sort of testing the mechanics and finding the fun and things like that in the game. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and I'm wondering, like, at what point do you think it's a good idea to try to get some feedback on the art, and how do you go about that?
You know, one of the things that we at CD Projekt Red have agreed upon is that one of our goals is to have always running project, meaning you can always download a version of the game that will work. This, you know, regardless of the production stage, regardless of what it looks like at the moment, you can always download a build that is working. So practically, we are constantly checking it, at least in theory, because as I've said before, it's sometimes, well, maybe I haven't said it out loud, but believe me, it is not that easy to convince artists to spend their time playing a game, while they could be just, you know, painting stuff or modeling stuff or animating stuff, right? But this is an important thing for us to have the game always running and to be able at any given moment to check how it comes together. When it comes to the feedback to the visuals, of course, there are milestones in which we are doing just that. Like we are, let's say we are preparing so-called beautiful corner, which is a specially crafted and tailored piece of the game, locations that we prepare to be shown and then to gather reactions, right? When it comes to things like UI art, and all of this stuff, this is the process that never ends. It starts with the first prototype, and we are testing it, and we are checking it against the user experience experts, right? So whenever you think you have something, and it's definitely worth checking whether it works. So you might organize a smaller group of testers, not necessarily people from the industry. They could be, you know, just players that you invite and ask them for opinion. You allow them to play your game and you ask them for opinion. So there's always a good moment to start checking. But definitely, whenever you think you have something interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point as well, like what kind of eyes you want on the project and what you get from that. I think as we talked about, like depending on what kind of expertise you have, you will see things very, very differently. And I think for my part as well, I think it's really important to have both the sort of both the eyes and opinions of people with and without any kind of game development and artistic skills. You will get different things out of that.
Plus 100 to that.
I have a really strong feeling that we could use another webinar with you guys, with Remi, Szymon. So many questions and so many topics to cover. Yeah, I see, Tristan. I'm tempted to ask the audience if they want another webinar with you guys, but I know Remi, Szymon, you are busy, so thank you for being here. Just one question from me. To be fair towards the audience, can you stay like 10 minutes longer after 5?
I'm fine with that.
Super, perfect.
Okay,
so,
for me.
Guys, we have 20 minutes for your Q&A, and just to avoid that hell will rise, so please don't unmute yourself all in the same time. Yes, just raise your hands as Hatef did, as Amanpreet did, and please put yourself in the queue and we will ask you to unmute and ask the questions. Please don't ask them in the chat. I really am not able to follow the chat. There were already 5 Discord groups created among our audience, and there's a lot of stuff going on. Amazing portfolios, by the way, so I'm very happy people use it as a platform. Okay, without any further ado, Hatef, what's your question?
Hello, thank you so much for the event. Well, the question is about how to manage the style in a new project. For instance, imagine when a company is trying to work on a new project with different different style in the project in comparison with the previous project. How is it difficult for the company and the managers, the supervisors, and directors to make their artists actually to leave the comfort zone, to experience new styles? How much it would be difficult? I know it depends on the project scale and many different factors, but is it really time consuming, for instance, to switch from a style to another, from like super realistic to something so cartoonish and stylish, something like that? Thank you.
Okay, I think I can take this one. So in general, it will be very costly. Pivoting from the style that is already established for the studio or for the team, it will be costly because some people will need more time to readjust. Some people will quit just because they will say, "That's not my style, man. I'm not doing that." Like I'm not a photorealistic painter, for example, or I know nothing about drawing with pencils, so I'm not doing that. It's a risky situation. It's manageable, of course, and you can mitigate it by working on the new style together with the artists, seeing where your strong points are, where the weaknesses are. Anticipating who might be unhappy with the new style, for example, because of any possible reasons. So it is difficult to convince people to work in a completely different style. It can be costly, but you can help them out also by gathering a lot of references, a lot of material that they can compare their own work to, and by starting the work on the art Bible. Like, during the production time, art Bible is a living document. It's never finished until the game is released. So you take your time and invest it into putting all the potentially important information in a document that everyone in the studio has access to, and make yourself available as well, because people will have questions. You are there to answer their questions, and sometimes you might not have an answer. You just tell them, "I'm sorry, I don't know at this moment. Just give me an hour or 2 or a day, and I'll come back to you with the answer." But keep on educating them, keep on working with them, and be prepared that some people will be unhappy, and that's a normal thing.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, man.
Amanpreet, welcome. What's your question? We cannot hear you.
Hello. Sorry. So, Remi, I was just reading your want to be a AD posts again. So in case I find the answer there. So I have 2 quick questions. One is on art style. Like if we make art style based on some game, does it make impact on our job application? Basically, if someone apply with some fan arts based on a game which a studio made. And second is for more experienced artists, like is painting and sketching is a must skill to have for an artist to be a AD. So that.
All right. So first things first. When working with people, like when reviewing portfolios online, I'll be totally honest with you. Whenever people ask me, what can I do to improve my chances? I tell them, go and create a love letter to the project you would like to work on. Because of the fact that each and every one of us, art directors, is biased by the project we're working on. Like, we definitely are. And when I see in your portfolio a piece of art that is somewhat similar to what I'm doing, I would instantly switch from asking myself whether you are a candidate for me to how can I use your skills. And it's not not necessarily conscious thing. It can be subliminal, but this is the mechanism that I see. We are switching to analyzing how can we use your skills. So definitely putting a stuff that is a expression of you being a fan of some sort of project to your portfolio, I would consider it a good thing, but that's me, okay? And you were asking the second question about what skill actually, because I couldn't hear it.
If sketching and painting is a must-have skill to be a AD.
No, absolutely no, but it helps a lot, man. It helps really a lot, and being able to sketch quickly, even very rough shapes, just to communicate your idea, it helps a lot when communicating with many artists, starting from character concept artists, environment concept artists, throughout the entire character department and vehicles department, you name it. It helps. It's a useful thing, but it's definitely not absolutely necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I quickly add in, like, if I'm a 3D artist, right? I don't have good sketching skill. So what could be the next step to follow in that? Like, I read somewhere like photography can be also an art channel to bring in the idea. So like, what do you suggest? Like, how can we move?
Everything that works for you, like gathering photographies, making photographies, gathering reference pictures from other media. What else? Probably even AI prompting can be a way to show what you're thinking about, right? Just I beg of you, don't use AI while making a game. But it's my personal thing again. But yeah, sketching can be even more helpful due to the fact that you are able to do it with your own hands in your spare time, right? But everything that works for you, as long as you are able to convey the message.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kacper, what's your question?
So what is your workflow / approach when it comes to designing or art directing things that weren't yet invented? For example, the cyberpunk sci-fi weapons, or things that are unrealistic or fantasy, like the new specimen of a monster in the Witcher series.
Well, mine is very simple. I'm going to Szymon asking him for help. So I believe Szymon is a better source of answers here.
Yeah, so I would think of how much we want to stick to the real world, yeah, because there is always some connection, but it can be stronger and it can be weaker. Yeah, how much of a fantasy should take to play the bigger role, yeah, and how much realistic it should be, and then you, I think, then you have to think of the as I said, of the rules that rule the world, yeah, and from the inspiration from real world. So probably something like usability, how it is designed to work, like in case of a weapons, yeah, and from the fact how this world work, you can create something. And for example, in cyberpunk, weapons are like something like part of the culture, I would say, yeah, like for, I don't know from where you are, but here in Europe, people generally don't have guns, yeah, at home, and since
and yeah, since, I'm from Krakow, so we are wearing machetes, you know, machetes.
Yeah. Yeah, but in cyberpunk it is a part of a culture, yeah. So for example, there are lots of like spray painting, like adding some stuff to it, yeah, because it's part of your style. It's like oversized in some ways, yeah, and while, for example, more professional weapons are very like, I don't know how to say it, but have lots of like technical stuff, like small details, yeah, and it all comes to the styles, yeah. Like you can find almost all, because I don't know if Neokic is represented in guns, but you can find like these different cyberpunk styles in guns as well, yeah. And you can base on it, like once you have rules, you can try to invent new things.
Okay, thank you.
Rory, welcome. What's your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So Remi touched on the differences between making a project that was like a sequel or existed in the same world as something else, and how that was different from creating something from scratch. I was just wondering what it was like to make Cyberpunk, which is originally based off a tabletop RPG.
Well, I will probably have to ask Simon again for help, because you know my just in last 2 weeks from now I'll be celebrating my 5th anniversary at CDPR. So I wasn't even there when they started, but I can imagine like switching from Witcher to Cyberpunk. That must have been a challenge, like I would say. Whether it was hard for them, for the team or not, to adapt to the original cyberpunk ideas, I don't know. I would expect the fact that they came up with so many very strict design rules for themselves, that would be an indicator for me that it was a challenge. So it's exactly the same as with changing the style completely, like from, let's say, photorealistic to very stylized, like comic book stylized, like Garfield's comic strip stylized, right? It's doable, but it's not easy. It's a challenge. The thing about CDPR though is this studio is filled with very ambitious people, like very ambitious with a capital A, to be honest. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they've managed to pull it off. I'm just a guy that art directed Gwent, then went to help with art directing Phantom Liberty. So I don't know really, but my assumptions are like this.
Yeah, I wasn't there at the time either, but I asked some people how they were creating Cyberpunk, and to be honest, from what I remember, in a tabletop RPG, you don't have that much visual material compared to the video game. So so everything would have to be done from scratch. Yeah. So it does. So I don't think it matters that much that it bases on something. What matters is it it has to have the spirit of the original, taking of course some rules how the world work, and the major difference would be thinking about what things from the original are so outdated today that they cannot go into the video game, yeah, because like lots of time passed, like 30 years or 20 so I don't remember, and some of ideas can be some of old ideas can fit into retrofuturism, but some can be like so funny in today's world, yeah, so not fitting what we know now, that it has to be changed, yeah. But I don't think that it mattered that much, because as I said, I don't remember much visual material from the original one.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, Jakob. Go on.
Hello, yes.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could share a bit on your process in making style guides. Like what makes a good style guide, and how can you make it as clear as possible for others to follow?
As many reference images as you can produce, to be honest. Like when working on art Bibles, for example, we do gather a lot of material that we believe we will be compared to, or we would like ourselves to compare to, regarding the style, the mood, you know, all of this stuff. So, you know, there is this old saying that an image is worth 1,000 words, and it's definitely true. So again, it helps a lot if you're an artist yourself and you can produce something by yourself, because it allows others to see how do you imagine those things you talk about being important. So yeah, I would say images, as much images as possible, and then you train your team to work with those images. They internalize them to some to some point, to some extent, and then they adjust their stuff, their own personal style to what is needed. And sometimes you just need to make more room for their creativity. But hey, it's okay, right? You're in this together. So comparing to, like, coming up with something that you can compare yourself to, then creating something that is a benchmark for the entire project, and then comparing and scrutinizing against this benchmark. A lot of talking, to be honest, a lot of talking, but hopefully it causes the projects to look better.
If I could add to that, I would say that this large amount of references should be like one of the first steps. But then, when creating actual style guide or art Bible, I would suggest to like actually limit the amount of images you show, but choose them very carefully. And also, you can use lots of diagrams, I would say, really simple sketches or simple diagrams, probably the best word, addressing the things that you want from certain style or certain, like, you know, part of the world. For example, like colors, shapes, proportions, directions, even patterns. Yeah, what patterns? Because when you look at these 4 styles from Cyberpunk, you would notice that every style has some traits. Yeah, from color, proportions, shapes, and patterns, stuff like this. And it can feel like making a science from art. Like it's even more mathematical than artistic, I would say. But it's very important because it's very easy to communicate with others. And when you have a big team and you hire like freelancers, outsource as well, you have to have these rules set in stone and presented in very clear way. Yeah.
I just have to brute force my way in here and ask a little follow up. Like, okay, that is what should be in there. But what about practically? What's the best way to have it? Like, is it a PDF? Is it like a database? Like, to me, it's a very relevant question, actually, because it needs to be easy to access, easy to update. You know, there's challenges there.
Yeah, you know, like ideally, it would be something that you can all work on simultaneously. So one of the things that we use are the online boards, like the Miro boards. But yeah, it can be anything, to be honest. You can print it out and have it in your space somewhere, if you fancy.
Yeah, like in a bigger company, you can have it like on Confluence. Yeah, you can have like PDFs, but it depends on what stage you are. Like when you're creating it, the collaborative boards are the way to go. But when it's actually set in stone, it can be even like as a PDF, yeah, and just distributed to people when you know that you don't want to change anything, yeah. And if you want to make like big change, you just make a new version. And this is the way to go.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next question, Arturo.
Hi, thank you. When working on games as big as you've been working for so long, that has such a wild fan base, how do you keep your morale of the team high? Because I know that, you know, sometimes fans can be quite toxic, and that could impact the morale of the team. So how do you deal with that? Thank you.
Oh, that's the most complicated question today. Like, this is a huge topic, you know, like honestly, without, you know,
Sorry.
all jokes aside, man, this is a huge thing. How to keep your artist healthy and eager to keep on working on whatever you do. So there's a lot of small things you can do, but definitely can go around and enhance the feeling of belonging to the team. Talking about, you know, us being a team and going through stuff together, something that should strengthen us. And you know, again, preaching the vision to make them love the vision still and again. A lot of smaller things, but there is no one single, there's no silver bullet there. Like, whenever you find yourself in a situation where the toxicity of the online community becomes very visible, the best you can do is to reassure your team that you're with them, you're in this together, and but you still believe in them and in the project. So this is the most important things that come to my mind right now. But in general, that's a huge topic, and we should probably invite some psychologists as well here, because yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah, thank you.
The gym helps, right? You have a gym in your premises.
Yeah, allegedly.
Please.
I mean, the gym is there, but it allegedly helps. Like, you know.
Okay, Rosapril, you made it. You are probably one of the last asking questions. So you are concerned if you make it. Please ask your question.
Hi, do you have my voice?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
First of all, I want to thank you for this webinar. It was so helpful. I want to thank you for this opportunity so I can ask my question. So I'm a 24-year-old graphic designer, which knows some character design and knows some digital art. And I'm really interested to working in game industry as a game artist, like concept art or character designer. So, but I don't have a bachelor in this major. So I really want to know if I need a college degree to work in game industry, and or my portfolio can cover it. So why are my first steps to be an artist in game industry, and do I really need a bachelor or college degree or not?
Remi, may I answer this question, please?
Of course, please do.
No, you don't. Is it the right answer? I get a lot of these questions. I get a lot of these questions from...
question of the day. We got the easiest one.
Yes, thank you. Finally, something I could answer. Rosapril, your skills, your talent, your portfolio speaks for itself, and your personality. So show off yourself, send your portfolio, you know, and this will do the job. I think you agree, Remi, again, that nobody in a AAA, AA, even you know, small studios is looking at the degrees. It's about personality, Absolutely. Your skills, your portfolio, and Absolutely. This is what we are also clarifying to our students, right? You're not for the degree in Futuregames. You are for, you know, all other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So look at me. I'm a sociologist. Do I look like a sociologist to you? Like, come on.
Philosopher here. Hello.
There you go.
Okay, so sorry again for speaking, but you know, I live in Iran and things are kind of difficult here. I really want to immigrate for, you know, working in game art and other stuff. And many people telling me that for a job visa, and when I, get an opportunity from a company, I also even searched for CDPR. They needed illustrator. So, but it says that it's a plus to having a degree. But for a visa for jobs, all of my friends and everyone telling me that I need the degree for just that's immigration. So it's not just about the job.
Yeah,
For,
maybe Rosapril, I'm sorry
yeah,
to, but I can take it. We deal a lot with our applicants from, Iran, India, Pakistan, Turkey, and they struggle to get here. So this is like completely different realm of what embassy, what particular country under which government requires from people to get in. So I don't think we are equipped here to answer your question, none of us. I try to support all the students applying to us from outside of European Union as we can by producing all kind of documents. Probably it would help if we were like the accredited school by the ministry offering a degree, but that would be your only benefit entering the market, that it would help you to relocate to Poland. So
thank you very much.
Yeah. And guys, by this opportunity, let me share with you email address if you want to ask that kind of questions and regarding any kind of application to Futuregames or anything regarded to how school is run. You can reach me under this email, join AlphaCrawl Futuregames SE. And I don't know, Remi, are you up to one final question?
Absolutely.
Okay, Ricardo, please. Stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I hope it's not too late and it's not too difficult of a question, but so since you previously briefly mentioned generative AI, I wanted just a bit of your take on the controversies on the topic. So in general, I think the brainstorming and research phase of producing concept arts is one of the most fascinating ones. And so trying to leave the ethical issues aside, do you think that AI can be treated as a valuable tool when it comes to brainstorming, looking for visual ideas and so on? Do you actually use some of that, or is that a very controversial thing on the industry at the moment?
Okay, so I don't use AI. Generative AI at the moment. I have tried, I have failed, then I have tried again, and I have failed to create what I wanted again. Then I got impatient and asked a friend if he could do it for me, and he failed. So I believe in the future, generative AI can be a useful tool for sketching. Maybe as the time passes by, it will get more sophisticated and will be able to introduce smaller changes into the picture instead of, like recreating it from scratch every time you put a new prompt or you modify the prompt. So my take on practical use of AI, it's not for me at this moment, at this stage, the way it works right now. Do we use AI in our line of work? We allowed to use AI just the same way we allowed to use pens, pencils, brushes, and any other kind of tool. As long as it helps you as an artist, it's okay if you use it. We won't put an AI-generated image directly into the game. That's our agreement at the moment. So can it be helpful? Yes, absolutely. Anything can. Like if something makes you feel better and work harder and come up with better ideas, everything is a game, right? So this would be my answer to you.
If I can add to that, I don't use it neither personally, but I think it's You know, it kind of depends on the project, yeah, because and on a company situation. Because if you have like a big company that has money to like hire people, yeah, then you can work traditionally and have a great results. But for example, I have a friend which works for a very small company, and he is the only concept artist there, and he uses AI a lot. But he has a really deep background in actual work, like in digital painting, 3D and stuff like this. Yeah, so he was already good in traditional tools, and he's using AI the way he was using photos before, just for this very start to have an idea, yeah, and then he is doing like everything with it, like adding something, photo bashing, repainting it, even like completely repainting, but it serves him as a very start, just like references.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, thank you.
I chime in a little bit as well, because this is a question that is, of course, relevant to students as well, and people who are looking at this artistic career path. And both because I'm an indie developer and a teacher, I'm sort of invested in the question, and I have been specifically researching and trying to find like the opinions of art directors on the usefulness of AI in their process. And sort of the people who would sort of financially benefit from integrating AI in their pipelines. And so far, like all answers that I've heard have been very much in line with what Remi says, that it's just not useful. I think there is a big misunderstanding there about sort of what sort of service a concept artist or artist is providing in a production in relation to what generative AI does. It's not actually doing the same thing. I think for sort of underground artists and illustrators or newspaper illustrators or something, it's a completely different ballgame. But for artists in production in games and even films, in large part due to what I've been talking about a bit about specificity, it's simply not something that is largely seen as beneficial from the research that I have been doing on it.
Okay, yeah, that's the reason why I was mostly referring to like the first brainstorming phase, so maybe researching ideas and concepts, but that of course for at the moment, for the current state of AI, it's not possible to go too deep and proceed to make complete assets with AI. But just as a starting point, it seems that someone is using it. Well, okay, it's very interesting. And anyway, thank you.
I would say that, for example, for a concept artist who has, let's say, like 3 years of experience, it is still quicker to find a photo and overpaint it, even in a really not precise way, but super quick. I think it's still quicker than trying to generate the exact thing that you want.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
And guys, here's my proposition. We have still a few more people who want to ask questions, but I feel we shouldn't overstretch our guests' time and patience. But I'm willing to make some exceptions, like to respond to your persistence. Matthew, Anne, Emilia, Carolina, and Lily, if you want your questions answered, please send it to me to join Alpha Crawl Futuregames SE, and I will do my best to reach out to Remi and Szymon and get written response and publish it on our social media. And this way, maybe I think this is a time to wrap up.
If you allow me, Piotr, just one thing. Guys, if you want to ask more questions and if you want to talk to either Szymon, myself, or any other CDPR artist, please consider joining us during the Promised Land Art Festival that will happen later this year, from September 7th till September 10th in Łódź, Poland. You are all invited. We are looking forward to talk to you.
Exactly. We will be there too, I hope.
Then I'm sure you will manage to pay to fly me over there, Piotr.
Yeah, of course. Feel invited. We have budget for this. So once again, Remi and Szymon, thank you very much for today. Thank you, Chris, for running this. I may ask the audience for a round of digital applause for you here on chat. Thank you very much for this. And this webinar was recorded. It will be published on our social media, so follow us. And again, these 5 guys who didn't get response, please send it questions to me. And thank you for today. It was really great.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.